Those are like three things that everyone needs to know. Stop chasing top line. In fact, when people tell me that, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. It means nothing to me. It's like talking into the air because
Yeah.
I know from experience, I want to know what you're keeping. And if you're not keeping anything, is there a strategy to that? And is there a timeline in place? Because there's a time and a place to do that, right? Reinvest in yourself, your business, your team, etc., right? But there has to be a strategy to it and there has to be a timeline to it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Amuse Bouche. I am joined with my good friend, Michelle Ghassemi, and I am super excited to have her on with us today to get some really good tips, some good resources on building your business, scaling your business, being a better leader. She is, let me just tell you, the wisdom that this woman has is amazing. She is a business expert. She is a fractional. If I get this wrong, I apologize, but you've been a fractional COO and a fractional CFO,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. She's also been a CEO herself. She had built businesses from scratch, scaled them, and then ended up exiting them. So she has a wealth of knowledge, and I am super excited to have you on the show today. Welcome, Michelle. And we are live too.
Amazing. I'm so excited to have this conversation. We have conversations like this all the time anyway, so this is just fun.
I know, I know. And I know I'm like, I could talk to you for hours, but we won't keep
I
people here for hours.
know. I know.
Maybe on another show.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your background and your story, so everybody who's viewing can learn a little bit about you.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a lot to it. Basically, I'll start with like the most recent and then kind of go back from there. So I just exited probably about 2.5, 3 years ago now from as a founder where I was 100% on the back end. It was a multi-location, luxury, organic, low toxic hair salons, multi-location, 25 plus employees. And I was 100% on the back end. So I was not client facing anymore for health reasons. One of the reasons why I had an organic salon, but I had been in that industry itself total about 19 years. So when I opened my space and I was 100% already away from client one to one, I was serving my employees and then through them, they would serve the clients. And that's really where I discovered my true zones of genius was in the business. I just
Mm,
really just like took to it so good. And I was like, I didn't even know this was in me. I didn't even know I
mm,
could build $1 million business from zero. And it was just, I really, really enjoyed the building and honing in on my skills, operations, team building, culture building, all the finances, bookkeeping, payroll, like all of that stuff is just, I just geek out on it and I love it. And prior to that, I was in corporate salons where I was kind of the fixer. So
mm.
they would put me into locations that were ready to close, and then I would turn them 90% profitable in year one, all while still maintaining my own clientele and my own performance metrics. And then they would move me to other locations. So I did that, and that was when we were in the Philadelphia area. So we did that, kind of bounced around. So
Oh,
that was
really?
really great. Yeah. And that's really where I got my operations expertise. And that's where I was trained
Mm,
really heavily in like leadership and leading people and stuff. Cause that was when I stepped away from just being the provider. Then I was managing teams and then regions and all those sorts of things. And then we moved to North Carolina where I opened my own business and used the founder knowledge, the CEO, COO, CFO type stuff. But even prior to that, I started to discover kind of this through line stemming from very early on,
mhm,
like 10, 11 years old. I come from generational poverty and I learned budgeting and financial management as a way to survive, me and my siblings, to just make ends meet. That's what I learned. And I viewed it as a fun thing. Like I had my little calendar in my room. I'd write my little, like I'd make bills for myself.
you
Like,
have your checkbook.
yeah. Like I wrote on my little wall calendar, this is due here, this is due here. Like I used to have makeup in the mail, cosmetique. I don't know, I'm dating myself. and then like Reader's Digest and like CDs, you know, like these little things that you're doing at like 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And it's so important, you know? And I would do that. And then, of course, like because I wanted to be like my brother who was doing kind of like the household bills and stuff. And I'm like, that looks really important and fun. And so I like did my own thing and I loved it. And then, of course, I started work at a very young age, you know, because that was out of necessity. But I
Yeah.
loved it. And and I didn't even know that was like wrong or taboo or like, hey, you shouldn't really know how to do that when you're 11 years old. I was just like, we're having fun. We're learning all sorts of things. I feel like such a grown up. And we're just, you know, I've got some pocket money and we're, you know, I'm buying McDonald's, you know, it's great. So,
Yeah.
but looking back, because a lot of people ask me, how did you know? Because I don't have a business background. I did not graduate high school, came from poverty, did not know how I would get out of my very, 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 very small rural town in Upper Michigan and then end up where I'm at right now. So I discovered this through line of like, I have a natural habit to look at patterns and data, and I'm able
Mm.
to connect it to the person and understand how to motivate that person, whether it's me or someone else, to move the numbers in a way that they want. And because I don't have all that business jargon and all that kind of stuff, I understand it from corporate, sure, and then running my own business, but I am able to distill some of those, you know, financial type things for that creative visionary mind so they can understand like, oh, I want to get a down payment on a house or a car, so this is what that looks like, and I just kind of back calculate and chop it down in a way that they can understand so then they can meet it. But in the end, it's all numbers and just understanding not only how to motivate the individual to do that, and then also back it up with the strategy and the numbers. So that's really what I have done very, very easily because it comes naturally to me. So building businesses and seeing things in other people's businesses, now that I'm a one-to-one mentor after selling those, now I work with other business owners. So I can see things that they don't see. I can see their blind spots. I can collapse time. I can see all those patterns because I'm working with the creative visionary, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then these back end financial type stuff don't come easy, but it's a, you know, necessary part of business. And I also fill the gap between bookkeeper, CPA, CFO, and founder,
Mm.
so that you are getting
Heavily
day to
financed.
day, yeah,
Yeah.
you're getting day to day stuff, and you are bouncing it off of financial metrics so that you can make immediate, hey, I got to fire this person, I got to hire this person, I got to order this piece of equipment, I got to get this. What does that look like in the day to day? Where's my cash flow? What can I do? Can I put it here? Can I do this? So that things are moving along without burning out or crashing and burning out. And that is before, you know, your CFO or your bookkeeper does things monthly or quarterly. Those are all necessary for sure. You should have those. But who's helping the founder in the day to day, in the 2
Sure.
a.m. when an employee leaves and maybe steals something or takes, you know, hacks something over there, or a client slips and falls in your space or something like that? It's that day to day type operations, protections, and whatnot for that founder that I really, really love to do.
That's so funny that you just said that because you and I are very similar with what we do. And I was on a call yesterday, and we were talking about brick and mortar businesses, and she said, "Yeah, like putting like just talking about like navigating if someone has a fire, or navigating like if there's a flood in the basement with a sewage pipe, or navigating if something happens with staffing for the day, and you need to find other staffing." And I said, "Funny you should say that because I've navigated all of
Yep.
those."
Yeah, I've
She
done
was
that
like,
too. Yeah.
"Really?" I said, "Oh yeah." So let me ask you a question. So one of the things that is fascinating about you, amongst all kinds of stuff, is and I know it plays into your leadership style. You do have American Indian
Yes.
heritage,
Yes.
correct? Yes.
Yes. I'm deeply connected to my ancestors. So I'm Ojibwe and I am Crane Clan, which is a leadership clan, and it's also a communication clan. And
Mm.
interestingly enough, when I received my native name about 2 years ago,
Oh wow.
the traditional healer let me know that my clan was actually different from most of my family, which I didn't know was a possibility.
Hmm.
So, but I always, it was like a missing piece just clicked because I never truly felt like I was a part of my family in that way in my tribe. That's a part of my journey in general of how I can do what I do because I've learned how to cope alone, obviously from my childhood. And then now feeling like I didn't feel ostracized or anything, but I just never felt like I clicked with the clan, resonated with my mom's clan, which was Makwa, which was bear.
Oh,
And
okay.
then during that ceremony, the traditional healer was like, because I was like, well, I'm Bear Clan, because that's, what we were told, right? And he's like, no, I actually don't see that for you. You are a leadership clan, and that comes from your father and his clan. And that just like blew my mind. And that was just a few
Wow.
short years ago. And I'm in my mid 40s. So I was like, oh, I was like walking around like I was in another world.
Yeah.
But I've always had a deep connection to my heritage. We were raised on tribal land, and a lot of that comes from generational poverty. I was bullied because I'm light skinned native versus how my siblings look, which is darker skinned.
Darker skin.
So I
Yeah.
was bullied because we lived on tribal land and I looked a certain way, right? Blonde hair, blue eyes. I was just like
Mm.
the neighbor kid running around. But we were always connected to our heritage um, in where we lived, the people that were around us. And I have always been a natural leader, even if the title or the position didn't allow it, which, when you're younger, not everyone likes that.
Yeah.
Little Miss Know It All, and I'm just like, I just know how to, do, even when I worked at a gas station, there was no one else there, but I was, the leader and I had the perfect tills and all the things, right? It just comes naturally to me. And that is a part of what I now know is my true clan, which is
Yeah.
Grand Clan. So, and that is really a part of how I lead and how I operate in my business, and also the perspective that I bring to others. So, I'm deeply spiritual, but I'm not religious. So, there's a difference there. And
Sure.
I
Hmm.
feel very, very grounded in who I am and my ancestors. And there's actually several strains of Native American in our history across Minnesota and upper Michigan and Canada.
Right.
So
Right.
there's a lot of history there that just lives in my DNA, where that has given me great power and wisdom to know that it doesn't matter external forces like no money, no education, stuff like that, which now I can see nothing would have stopped me from what I accomplished and where I'm at right now, because I have all this deep, deep ingrained, this is who I am and this is how I operate. I had no idea I could generate $1 million plus business.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even know what that money looked like, but yet I did it. And then I repeated it every year until I sold and walked away. And for a lot of people, that was a shock, right? But that's the way that I like doing things is I'm going to kind of get all the juice out of this orange. Then I'm going to be like, okay, that's great. I'm going to discard 80% of that. I'm going to take the 20% that I really want, and then I'm going to move to the next phase. And then everything is that 80-20 split. And that is what has allowed me to really live a life that is fulfilling, helps others, and then also produces great accountability in me. Like,
Yeah.
I will never give my power outside of me. If I want to change something, I change it. I'm responsible for that. And those
Mm.
are the things that I help my clients with. And of course, when I manage my team members, let's take
Yeah.
responsibility. Like, anything that you have control over, you can do anything that you want to do. And I'm a testament to that for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, it's funny because when you said the 80-20, it applies in business, but it also applies in life because so much we fill our life with, so many things that we get overwhelmed. We fill our business with so many things, we get overwhelmed. We're focusing on, the next best thing and the next shiny object. And really what you need to do is come back to like what is at the core.
Yeah.
So in your personal life, like who are you? Like
Mhm.
who are you and knowing who you are as a leader, as a person, and then aligning what you're doing with that. And so often, again, we bring so much external stuff in. You got to cut away
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
And also in our business, I mean, we end up putting stuff into our business. We say yes to everything,
Mhm.
you know, we want to do every, you know, we have all these thousands of ideas. I run into this a lot with my clients. They've got all these ideas and they want to implement all of it. And you
Right.
got to get to the 20%
Yeah.
that is at the core. That is the
Yeah.
most important. So, is there a specific industry that you work with, by the way? Or is it kind of across?
It's primarily like service based.
Okay.
Although some of my, and it's brick and mortar, it's online, it's outside of my previous industry, it's, you know, a little bit of everything. It's primarily, and it doesn't even matter how long they've been in business or their revenue that they're making. It's more a function of, are you ready to scale what you've grown? And that could
Mm,
look like any dollar amount or any amount. Because, you know, people grow quickly. So that could be in
gotcha.
year one or it could be in year five. So it
Gotcha.
really depends on what the founder wants to do and if they're ready to scale, get systems, create a little bit of change so that they can keep growing.
So I have a question. So, you know, a lot of business owners, you start your business and all you're focusing on is just generating revenue
Yep. Hmm.
and they don't focus on structure.
Hmm.
So, from your perspective, what are those things that you see, whether it's patterns, because you mentioned like you're really good at spotting patterns, when people are just focusing on revenue and they're growing, 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 but they can't figure out why they're not profitable? What are those patterns and those biggest mistakes that you see people making, expecting that they're going to scale and they don't understand why they can't?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is people underestimate, founders underestimate the price of people not understanding what they should be doing at any given point in time. Because that is the biggest thing that I see, and I've experienced it myself, is, you know, you've got a worker who's doing this, but you can't figure out why they're not doing this or why not, we're not productive or why this is happening. It's because you have no systems in place. And so
Mm,
people don't really understand what systems is. It is
mm,
just writing things down so that you can hold someone to account, period. They think it's this big Excel sheet with 28 tabs and all the things, right? Yeah, you can do that. Great. A great hub. But your main thing is, how do you hold your team member or even your client to account, to an expectation, not an assumption, not, hey, this is what I would do. No, what is it that, what does done look like to them? What does being on time look like to them? Right? What does that done look like? Well, you have to establish that first because you're the founder. And so that is definitely where I see they're so focused on the revenue and you need people to do that, right? And then they're like, oh, wait a minute, why do we have a lot of turnover? Why are there like missed deadlines? Why is there missed client care? And then I come in and I'm like, I know exactly why. When I start asking them a couple questions, where are your job offers? Where's your job descriptions? Where's your handbook? Where's a manual? Where's anything written down that is available to the employee? What happens
mm.
when they get hired? How do you hire them? What does that look like? Like it has to be, it's that clear as kind mentality, right? But they
Yeah.
become so focused on, hey, I want to know exactly how to optimize my team. I want to know the KPIs. I want to know the revenue. I need to grow by this amount. Well, how are you tracking that? And then how are you holding your people to account? That's one of the biggest things. And then the other thing that I see is founders 100% outsource the financial understanding of their company,
Mm.
period.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
100%. Yes, you should have a CFO. I'm not saying that. Or CPA, like CPAs are worth their weight in gold, like amazing.
A good one.
Yes, but that does not excuse the founder from not understanding their P&L, their cash flow, which is much, much different than their profit and their revenue. Those are like three things that everyone needs to know. Stop chasing top line. In fact, when people tell me that, I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. It means nothing to me. It's like talking into the air because
Yeah.
I know from experience, I want to know what you're keeping. And if you're not keeping anything, is there a strategy to that? And is there a timeline in place? Because there's a time and a place to do that, right? Reinvest in yourself, your business, your team, etc., right? But there has to be a strategy to it and there has to be a timeline to it. Because what I also see is founders start to resent their company and resent their team and get frustrated and get irritable. Those are all signals that one, you're not getting what you need, you're worn out, you're spread thin. All of that is systems and financial awareness, period.
Yeah.
And I've even taught some of my founders, which I strongly believe in, that founders should be asking intelligent questions of their bookkeeper, of their CFO. You should know what you need on your specific P&L so that you know what the profit drivers are, what the revenue drivers are in your specific business. And then you need to be asking that person, hey, how's this lever? How's this lever? Because yes, you'll have some general business metrics there, which you need, but then there should also be a handful of really specific items that pertain to your industry and to your particular business. And a CFO is not going to tell you that. A
Yeah.
CPA is not going to tell you, hey, you can hire Susie now at $15 an hour because this is no, they don't do that. That's not their job. You have to understand what that looks like. And if you don't understand what that looks like, you have to hire help for that, period.
Yeah.
It's going to save you. Like my clients, when I come in, they're like, this has been sitting in our Google Drive for 2 years. And I'm like, yeah, so I just saved you 2 years of work.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, we've been struggling with this system and, we have young managers, 20-year-olds who this is their first go around, right? So let's reduce the trial and error, which equals money, right? So let's do that by getting someone in here to create these things when you don't have the time to it. And then also training your managers to give them the support to help implement it as well. So those are just some really key top areas that I see pretty much every founder I work with.
Definitely. I mean, I think I work with a lot of restaurants, and when you come in, and a lot of them, they think that the CPA is going to understand all the unique metrics that you need to measure in a restaurant, and they don't. But then they also aren't tracking, they don't have the right systems set up so that they can track those
Yeah.
metrics. So they can run a healthier business, because restaurants typically run off of very lean profits. But it is very possible for a restaurant to be super profitable if you're managing those numbers correctly, if you have the right systems in place, to your point.
Yeah.
So,
And even in the industry that I built my business, it was the hair industry.
yeah.
The margins are very slim. If you have 20% margins, you're top of your game, top of the industry, because you have to have so much cost of goods in order to perform the service, just like a restaurant. There's so much there, and there's a timeline on it because we deal with chemicals, right? So you have to understand all of those little things in order to turn any kind of profit.
Sure.
And then also understanding where that cash flow is coming and going. And then also in our industry, you're commission based. So it's really sky's the limit, but they don't really understand how to create sky's the limit for their to unlock that potential for each and every person. So there's a lot of potential there, again, in the person and really
Right.
understanding how to unlock that. Yeah.
Right. And it definitely comes from the founder, number one, to make sure that they're surrounding themselves with the right people,
Yeah.
instead of trying to figure everything out themselves. And then also, being willing to let go at the same
Yes.
time,
Yeah.
and then focus on driving the vision forward, and empowering the other people around them to do the things that they need to do.
Yeah.
So I have one last question before we wrap this up. With the rise of AI and everything that's going on in the world, what do you think is going to be one of the biggest struggles for founders and CEOs in the next, let's just say, 2 years?
It's the same thing that every founder struggles with whenever there is innovation, is not being afraid. Not being afraid to use the new tools that are out there and to use them in a way that you are using them and you are driving them. And it does not replace your critical thinking. It does not replace your creativity. It doesn't replace any of that. It is simply a tool that makes you more efficient. It's the same concept back in my industry when we used to have a paper log. You write all your appointments in and you've got paper and pen. Oh, what happens when we got a software now? Now we got online booking, and everyone freaked out. They're like, I don't trust this. I don't trust this. I don't, and then we got away from cash, right? In a lot of industries. Oh, I don't trust this credit card, and everyone steals my data and all the things. Well, that's fear talking. and I get it. But in order to remain innovative and profitable, you need to understand how to continue to work smarter, not harder, and use the tools that you have that will maximize your potential. And understanding that it does not replace you. On the flip side, I see people also using AI just willy-nilly. Like,
Oh yeah.
you still need to guide it, and it's only as good as the content. And then you have to stress test it yourself. You have to have some critical thinking and be like, no, that's not right. Like, don't just do a search or create a conversation. Then you're like, okay, this is good to go. Like, there's still like,
Yeah.
you still need to vet it a little bit and get some sources and all of those sorts of things. So don't just go on that side. And then there's other ones that are just like so terrified. So you got to have a balance. You've got to still use your critical thinking. You got to feed it you got to understand how to communicate better, not only to the person, but to the AI.
To the AI, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing my husband and I talk about this because he's in the tech industry, and it's, using AI without having any boundaries or having any clarity around how you want to use it, what you're going to feed into it, but then also what are you going to do with the information?
Yeah.
And, like AI is not going to be able to think the same way a human being would think. So we want to make sure that we're putting those things into place. So
yeah. And ironically, all of those new things, guess where they need to live? In a handbook, in a policy, so that your 20-year-olds aren't just blasting your company stuff online. Like, so I'm coaching a lot of my clients as we're shifting into on paper stuff. Hey, we need a media thing. We need a media policy. We need a third-party app and AI, like, so that we can protect your stuff as well as, people are going to be using it. So we got to make sure we have our guidelines out there for how to use it.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, this has been a great conversation. I'm telling you, it's like everybody who's listening, whether you are watching on LinkedIn, whether you're watching later on YouTube, or you're listening to it on the podcast, there is so much knowledge here and so many like insights that Michelle has given us today. And I'm telling you, like, you're going to want to go back and like take some notes because you've shared so much amazing stuff with us. So thank you. I have one last question for you.
Yes.
Well, actually, a couple. What's your favorite kind of music?
My favorite kind of music is typically like R&B, rap, hip hop, loud. Yeah.
What is something funny about you that people don't know?
What is something funny? I can blink one eye almost like a wave.
Really?
Not a wink, but like, and that's a key indicator, if you ever see me do that I'm annoyed with someone. Where it's like a slow, almost like a lizard. Like, it's just,
oh my gosh,
interesting.
I'm going to have to pay attention to that.
You're like, ooh, someone's saying something that is irritating her or is not so smart.
I love that. I'm going to have to look for that now.
You're like, who's she talking to?
Yeah. All right. One last question. What are you most grateful for?
I am most grateful for my health.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mid-40s. Every day is a gift at this point. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, without our health, we don't have anything.
Yes.
So, and I think it's one of the things that people take for granted the most.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, thank you for joining today. Let people know, how can they find you out on social media or on the internet?
Yes. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Michelle M. Ghassemi. And then you can also find me on Instagram. Those are all linked. Instagram is Ops and Growth Mentor. And then in all of my bios, there's links to freebies I have called Unblock Your BS. And then I've also got dashboards. So like an operating dashboard for some of those beginning people. You can purchase that. I've got one-off strategy calls for 30-day support if you want to start there. And then, of course, dropping in my DMs at any given time to talk about private mentorship, what that would look like, or just have a conversation and see what would be a good fit for you based on what you have your goals around. And I love working with founders, especially women founders who are doing great, big, beautiful things in their missions and their visions. I love to support that.
Awesome. And anybody who works with you, let me tell you, you are a blessing and a gift, and not just as a mentor, but as a friend. So,
Yes, I will go
so
to bat
thank
for you
you.
for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, make sure you check out Michelle online, and we will see you back here next week for another episode. So let's
Bye.
all take care of each other a little bit more than we already do. And have a great rest of your week.